Hi, David Taylor or Mr Pelargonium, back with another video. Welcome back to the channel. Today it's going to be all about standards. I've been promising a video about standards, so let's have a look. Now, of course, you can use coloured leaf varieties. I've got one here. This has actually been trained for quite a while, actually. Seems relatively slow growing. This is Helen Bainbridge. It's a pink bloom, but it's a nice sort of gold tricolour. The red or pink is not that dominant at this time of the year, but it's got a lovely colour. This is growing quite well, relatively slow growing, but I potted this on at the end of April. It may need potting on again soon. But so yeah, you can have a go with doing them of any type of plant really. The big problem are the Regals, which I have mentioned in the past. Regals are a problem because all they ever want to do is bush. This plant this was repotted in May, actually. I potted this up. But this is one of my own seedlings. It's taken a while to get going. I think I mentioned that I did have some issues with it over the winter because I overwatered it. But it is flowering, it's come back, thankfully. And this has really, for a Regal on its own stem, has got a relatively straight stem. And I'm hopeful there's a few bits of proper growth coming out of it now, which you will get at this time of year. I mentioned in the last video that all Regals really want to do in the early part of summer is flower. So they won't throw a lot of proper growth. But from now on is the time to really sort of get them to grow and develop as a standard. I'm just going to break that off. That's quite yellow, that leaf. But I've got some nice proper side shoots, growth shoots, growing out of the side of these sort of side stems now, because Regals, of course, bloom and grow on different stems, unlike zonals, which bloom and grow on the same stems. So yeah, this is more or less how I would want it. This will really pick up some pace in the growth in the late summer. Once the light begins to turn in, probably once we get into August, the light level goes down a bit. This will really begin to put on some growth. And hopefully the head will really begin to develop then. Now, the one thing, of course, which I have mentioned in the past, is that with Regals being sort of relatively complicated to grow as standards, now I have got a unique, and uniques and Regals are very closely related. And I am hopeful of being able to do a graft, put a Regal on a very, very fast growing unique stem. So this is being grown really as a whip. And you can see I've had this, well, how long have I had it? Not monumentally long, couple of months. And it's put on a lot of height. The top of the stem, though, where I graft it onto, will need to be a little bit mature. So there's a chance that we may need to wait until next year to do that. We'll have to wait and see. I think the ideal time would be late August, early September. If this stem is ready, if this whip stem is ready to be able to take it by then, we'll have to see how it goes. But because they're so closely related, you can graft onto unique whip stems, and we'll have a look. And as I say, I don't know though whether this is going to be ready to do, because this is quite fleshy, this stem, and I don't know that we're going to be able to do it this season. If not, we'll wait to next season and it'll be even taller anyway. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But it is something that I want to have a go at, because I've had one or two requests asking about grafting. That's an ideal opportunity to have a go at it, I think. Now, not all zonals are, completely easy to grow on as standards, particularly plants that are very, very short jointed. My Shrivenham Star, which I've been attempting to do here, I've got a lot of root shoots growing up on this. This is so short jointed that it's going to take an age to get to any decent height. But, I'm hopeful that I can get something relatively tall on it. It is growing, but because it is so short jointed, it's going to take a while to get there. So you do have to have a bit of patience in growing them, I'm afraid. Now, I mentioned coloured leaf varieties. Now I've got a sort of gold leaf plant here. This is actually a Swedish variety, a Denjo, excuse my pronunciation of that, of course, Tintomara. Particularly like this one, love the gold leaf. But this is behaving itself. This is growing really quite quickly. I've got a side shoot there that I need to take out. But the top has begun to split. Now you can see this, if I home in on this, now up the top here, we can see, I'll try and home in that can come out, and I'll do that now actually. But the two stems above, I'll just take this out. Hopefully you can catch that. It's relatively small stem, so it's not too difficult to take out. Easily done. But you can see here how that has begun to naturally sort of split there. I will take that bloom out. That's another key issue. Take your bloom out when the heads are just forming, because you do not want bloom. You want the plant to concentrate on growing. But that has equally split into a V, and I will almost certainly now let that head develop. I will tie that in there, pull that across. I'm just going to tie that in. So I've taken that side shoot out. I'm just going to tie that back across to level it off. It's at the tip of the stick, but that is quite a neat fork end. So that has naturally sort of split. And I think that's ideal now to begin to develop as a head. It's about 60 centimetres or 2 feet tall at this point where the head's going to form. And I think that is big enough. That's in a 6-inch pot. Yeah, so I think that is really decent now to form the head. I've actually got another one, which is just a bit smaller, but they have behaved themselves. But the coloured leaves are good for growing as standards. Stellas as well. And you've seen me develop this Vivienne, forgot its name for a moment. But this has grown on quite nicely. I did take a side shoot or two of this out the other day. That is in excess of 60 centimetres tall now. And I think I will probably let the head of this develop. But again, the important thing, as is always to remember, is that before there's a head on it, you really must keep these side leaves on, because it's what's enabling the plant to grow. But yeah, this is really growing how I wanted to grow, but I don't think I'm far off letting the head develop on that now. There's a bloom. And just like that, Tintomara, I think we've got a natural fork there going on, just at the tip. You may be able to home in on that. I think that would be an ideal place to let the head develop. I've actually got another one of these that's not quite so big. One that I have just reminded myself of, talking of Regals, here's a small one here that's got quite a straight stem. Now, occasionally, if you get a plant that has got a relatively straight stem, you can think about developing a head on the end of it. And this had such a long stem that I thought this is ideal to train as a standard. It's also one of my favourite varieties. It's an Australian variety called Nicola Buck. I think it might be a Des Saddington variety, but that may be wrong. I'll check that and I'll put a note below if it is wrong. But love this variety. It's very similar, actually, fairly similar. It's a different shade to Parisienne, which I spoke about in the last video. But this is doing perfectly. We've got probably a 30 centimetre stem and a lovely little developing head that's almost developing on its own accord. And so that's really good. So if something is, what I'm saying, I suppose, if something is sort of saying to you, look, I'm growing quite lengthy, maybe have a go at growing me as a standard, then that's the thing to do. Now, one other variety which I think I'll show you today is Phyllis. Now, this is a Phyllis. It's a sort of variegated scented lever, or bicolour, I should say, gold bicolour. I'm sort of growing this very much in the hope that I can get the plant to the stage that I got it to a number of years ago. I used to have a huge standard of Phyllis, and I'm desperate to have another go at it. We got stems running up. This may be a flower stem, and I may need to get this side shoot to develop more as the head. And I'm really hopeful that I can have another go at developing a Phyllis. I mean, the thing is with Phyllis is that it is relatively long jointed, but as it ages, the joints get shorter, and it lends itself in a way to growing as a standard. Very big and strong it can become. But the key thing during the winter is not overwatering it, and ensuring that you really don't overdo it. To prevent me from accidentally overwatering it, I've actually got this in like an almost alpine mix of compost. A lot of drainage material, probably 40% drainage material, but I feed it strongly each watering, so it makes it grow, no problem. But you lose that potential fear of overwatering it, which you can do in the summer just as easily as you can in the winter. Now, another one to show is our old boy, the Robin Louises, which are now 3 years old, almost exactly actually. 9th of the 7th, 2018, these were taken. So they're almost his birthday. It's just gone past it. 3 years old. I did put this in the show. You may have seen it if you look back at that. I won't insert the little clip which I did in the previous video because you're seeing it now. The blooms are just beginning to go over. But this I still think will get better with age. I still think it's a little bit open in the middle. It needs a crop back. It will get a crop back in the autumn. Or maybe late summer, and I will almost certainly repot it. I have pulled it out a couple of times just to check no mealybug and that sort of thing, which it hasn't. We need to get more sort of base growth in it to be able to throw balanced bloom at the top, because at the moment all the bloom is round the side. Need to develop more head at the top, which I knew, but that will develop over the coming years. Now, I'm going to take the camera off again because there are one or two others that I will show. Right now, so a couple of others that we've got. Now, you may remember this Vectis Snow. This has grown on, I've had this in a 6-inch pot. It's grown really, really quite tall now. This is probably, that is a good 60 centimetres tall. We've got it sort of split. I've taken a bloom out, but I would say, I don't know whether that's maybe ready to start the head, and I think it is because I don't really want this to get much taller. It is very tall, and I think you can sometimes overdo the height of the stem sometimes, so need to be very careful. A short standard I've got here is a Formosum. It is a spots and splash jobby, and I will take that duff bloom out, which has reverted a bit. But so there's a small one, a small Formosum. But yeah, that's doing okay. That's developing. I let the head go on that because there was a natural fork split. If you get this natural fork split, as I've spoken about, that's often the time to let it go. Now, one other, I've got another one here. I'm actually just going to move a small basket that I've got there. Now, something that you can see growing up here is a really nuts plant. And this is well over a metre tall. In fact, it's more like a metre and a half. This is a Zonatic. I've got to check the name actually because I've had so many this year. This is Lara Andre, so it's one of Cliff Blackman's, the Australian breeder, well known. But this has gone absolutely nuts. It's just started to bloom actually. A lovely sort of bulbous bloom, very attractive. But I have more or less, I've been watering and feeding it, but it's been more or less sort of let go to its own devices. And that seems more than happy there. So what I may do is repot it. It's in a 6-inch pot currently, or 15 centimetre. And I may then just sweep that along to the corner because it obviously loves being in that position. And sometimes if you get a plant that does well in a specific place in your greenhouse, it's sometimes often better to just literally leave it where it is. And that's what I will probably do with that. Another one just in front of it actually. I mean, you can see the size of those leaves are about 15 centimetres across. Absolutely nuts. Now this is Butterfly Brian West. I've already let the head develop. It's split out in all manner of ways, so it's brilliant. That's quite a nice short standard. Needs a bit of work, needs a bit of tidying up. I will probably pot that on now to a 6-inch pot. I hope that you've been able to pick up a few tips from this video today. I'll obviously add it to the playlist of the standards as well. I'll put it up as a fresh video because I've said all along that I've been wanting to do a video about standards. Anything significant as we go forward now into the late summer period, I will show you any progress, any sort of slight head shaping or whatever that we may do. We'll obviously look at that as we go forward into this late summer period now. Well, not now, but into the late summer period. So from Robin Louise, who is my daughter, by the way, but this was obviously named after her, we'll say goodbye and we'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.